Please! Somebody tell me what's happening to my wife!
The divorce papers slipped from Daniel Kim's hands and scattered across the courthouse steps. His phone vibrated violently in his pocket. He almost ignored it. Almost. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Daniel rubbed his forehead and answered. Hello? Mr. Kim. Yes. This is Seoul General Hospital. Your wife has been admitted through the emergency department. The color drained from his face. What happened? Sir, we need you to come immediately. The call ended. For a moment, Daniel stood frozen. Just 10 minutes earlier, he had been preparing to finalize his divorce from Amara. Now, nothing else mattered. He ran. 3 months earlier, there was a time when Daniel couldn't imagine a single day without Amara. When they first met, she had walked into a coffee shop carrying a stack of books that immediately slipped from her hands. Daniel had helped pick them up. One awkward conversation became another. One date became two. Two became a relationship neither of them expected. Daniel was Korean. Amara was African. Many people doubted they could make it work. They proved everyone wrong, or at least they thought they did. 5 years later, their wedding photos still hung on the living room wall, but neither of them looked at them anymore. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt colder every day. That evening, Daniel arrived home, nearly 3 hours late. Again. The food on the dining table had gone cold. Amara sat quietly staring at her untouched plate. Daniel loosened his tie. I'm exhausted. Amara laughed bitterly. You always are. Daniel sighed. Please don't start. Start what? You know exactly what. Amara folded her arms. No, Daniel, tell me. I just got home, and I've been waiting for you for 3 hours. I was working. You were always working. Daniel's jaw tightened. Everything I do is for this family. What family? The words hit harder than she intended. Daniel looked away. Amara's eyes filled with tears. Do you know what hurts the most? He remained silent. I don't even miss the old Daniel anymore. His expression changed. What does that mean? It means you've been gone so long that I've forgotten who you are. Daniel grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. I can't do this tonight. That's the problem. What? You never do this. He stared at her. Amara pointed toward the dining table. You never talk. Silence. You never listen. More silence. You never see me. Daniel's patience finally snapped. And you never appreciate anything I do. The room fell quiet. Amara stood slowly. You really believe this is about appreciation? I work 16-hour days, and I spend every day alone. I'm trying to provide, and I'm trying to survive. Daniel looked away. He knew she wasn't completely wrong, but neither was he. That was the problem. They both felt justified. They both felt hurt, and neither knew how to reach the other anymore. That night, they slept facing opposite directions. Neither slept much. Weeks passed. The arguments grew worse. Small disagreements became massive fights. A forgotten phone call, a missed dinner, an unanswered text. Everything turned into conflict. One evening, Amara sat across from her friend Sophia. I don't recognize my marriage anymore. Sophia frowned. Have you told him that? I've told him everything. And he doesn't hear me. Sophia remained quiet. Amara lowered her voice. I think we're breaking. Back at the office, Daniel sat with his longtime friend, Min Jun. You look terrible. Thanks. I'm serious. Daniel rubbed his eyes. Things aren't good. With Amara, Daniel nodded. Min Jun leaned back. Do you still love her? The answer came instantly. Of course. Then fight for her. Daniel laughed without humor. I don't even know how anymore. A month later, things became even worse. Their wedding anniversary arrived. Amara waited all evening. She checked her phone repeatedly. No message, no flowers, no call, nothing. By midnight, Daniel finally walked through the door. The moment he saw her face, he remembered. His stomach dropped. Amara stood slowly. Do you know what today is? Daniel closed his eyes. Amara. Do you know? His silence answered the question. Tears filled her eyes. 5 years. 5 years of memories. 5 years together. And he forgot. Daniel stepped forward. I'm sorry. No. Please. No. She shook her head. I'm tired of apologies. I made a mistake. No, Daniel. Her voice broke. A mistake is forgetting your keys. Daniel looked down. A mistake is taking the wrong turn. A tear rolled down her cheek. But forgetting your wife on your anniversary, another tear followed. That's a choice. Amara, I'm done making excuses for you. The room became painfully quiet. Daniel felt something shifting, something dangerous, something permanent. The next words terrified him, maybe because part of him saw them coming. Amara wiped her tears. Then she said the words neither of them could take back. Maybe we should get divorced. Daniel's heart stopped. For a long moment, neither spoke, neither moved, neither breathed. The woman he loved was standing in front of him, asking to end their marriage. Part of him wanted to fight. Part of him wanted to beg. Part of him wanted to promise he would change. But he was exhausted, emotionally exhausted. And for the first time, he simply whispered, "Maybe you're right." The moment those words left his mouth, both of them felt something break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like glass cracking beneath pressure. Neither knew it then, but the worst days of their lives were only beginning. And yet, hidden behind all the pain, fate was already preparing a miracle neither of them saw coming. The following morning, the house felt unfamiliar. Daniel woke up before sunrise and sat on the edge of the bed. For several minutes, he simply stared at the wall. The conversation from the previous night kept replaying in his mind. Maybe we should get divorced. Maybe you're right. Those words echoed louder than any argument they had ever had. When he finally walked downstairs, Amara was already in the kitchen. She was making coffee. Normally, she would ask if he wanted some. Normally, he would complain that she added too much sugar. Normally. Today, there was nothing normal about them. Neither spoke. Neither looked at the other. The silence felt heavier than any fight. Daniel picked up his car keys. "I'm leaving." Amara nodded. "Okay." That single word hurt more than he expected. No, "have a good day." No smile. No warmth. Just okay. Daniel left. The door closed behind him. Amara immediately sat down and burst into tears. For weeks she had been angry. For months she had been frustrated. But now the reality was sinking in. Divorce. The word no longer felt like a threat. It felt real. And that terrified her. At the office, Daniel couldn't focus. His computer screen remained untouched for almost an hour. Minjun eventually noticed. "You haven't moved since you got here." Daniel sighed. "It's over." Minjun frowned. "What is?" "My marriage." The words sounded strange when spoken aloud, like they belonged to someone else's life. "What happened?" Amara asked for a divorce. "And?" Daniel looked away. "I agreed." Minjun nearly choked on his coffee. "You did what?" "I agreed." "Are you crazy?" Daniel rubbed his face. "I'm tired." So is she. "You don't understand." "No, Daniel, you don't understand." Minjun leaned forward. "People don't spend 5 years building a marriage just to throw it away because things got hard." Daniel remained silent. "Do you still love her?" Again, the answer came immediately. "Yes." "Then why are you acting like this?" Daniel didn't have an answer because the truth was painful. He loved her. He had never stopped loving her. But somewhere along the way, they had both become prisoners of pride. Neither wanted to be the first to surrender. Neither wanted to admit how much they still cared. And now they were paying the price. 3 weeks later, they sat in a lawyer's office. The room felt cold. The lawyer calmly explained paperwork, timelines, and procedures. Daniel barely listened. Amara stared at the table. Neither had imagined their marriage ending this way. The lawyer slid a document toward them. "These are the preliminary divorce forms." The word divorce landed like a hammer. Amara swallowed hard. Daniel looked away. The lawyer continued talking. Neither heard a thing. Afterward, they walked out together. The parking lot was nearly empty. For several seconds, they stood beside each other. Strangers. That was what hurt the most. Not the anger, not the arguments, the distance. The feeling that two people who once knew everything about each other now knew nothing. Daniel finally spoke. "Do you need a ride home?" Amara shook her head. "I'll take a taxi." "Okay." Another painful silence. Then she walked away. Daniel watched her leave. A strange feeling settled in his chest. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. But he ignored it. A few days later, Amara woke up feeling dizzy. She sat on the edge of the bed and closed her eyes. The room spun slightly. She assumed it was stress. After all, what wasn't stressful these days? She forced herself to continue with her day. But by afternoon, she felt nauseous. The next morning was even worse. Sophia noticed immediately. "You don't look well." "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Amara laughed weakly. "I'm just tired." Sophia stared at her, then suddenly narrowed her eyes. "What?" Sophia leaned forward. "When was your last period?" Amara froze. The question caught her off guard. She quickly did the math. Her expression changed. Sophia noticed. "Oh my goodness." "No." "Oh my goodness." "No." Sophia grabbed her arm. "Amara." "No way." "Take a test." Amara immediately shook her head. "No." "Take the test." "No." "Take the test." An hour later, they stood inside a pharmacy. Amara stared at the pregnancy test in her hand. Her heart raced. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not during a divorce. Not when her marriage was falling apart. Not when everything felt broken. Back home, she locked herself inside the bathroom. Several minutes later, she stared at the result. Positive. She blinked, then blinked again. Still positive. Her legs felt weak. She slowly sat down. Pregnant. She was pregnant. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Not tears of sadness, not tears of happiness. Just overwhelming emotion. A child. Their child. The child they had wanted for years. And now it was happening at the worst possible time. Her phone rang. It was Sophia. "What happened?" Amara couldn't speak. "Amara? I'm pregnant." Sophia screamed so loudly that Amara had to move the phone away from her ear. "Oh my goodness." Amara laughed through tears. "I don't know what to do." "Have you told Daniel?" "No." "When are you telling him?" Amara stared at the positive test. "I don't know." That night, she barely slept. Every possible scenario played through her mind. What if Daniel was angry? What if he didn't want the baby? What if he still wanted the divorce? What if this changed nothing? The next morning, she scheduled a doctor's appointment. By afternoon, she sat nervously in an examination room. The doctor smiled warmly. "Congratulations." Amara's eyes filled with tears again. "Everything looks healthy so far." Healthy. The word immediately filled her heart with hope. Hope she hadn't felt in months. The doctor handed her a photograph. Amara stared at it. A tiny life, a tiny miracle, a tiny reason to believe that maybe everything wasn't lost. Outside the hospital, she sat on a bench and stared at the image. Then she opened her contacts. Her finger hovered over Daniel's name. For almost a minute. Finally, she pressed call. The phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then he answered. "Hello?" His voice sounded distant. "Daniel." Something in her tone immediately alarmed him. "Amara? I need to tell you something." His heart began racing. "What is it?" For several seconds, she couldn't speak. Then she finally whispered the words that would change both their lives forever. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Complete silence. Daniel thought he had heard wrong. "What?" "I'm pregnant." His chair nearly fell over as he stood. "What did you say?" Amara looked down at the ultrasound image. Tears rolled down her face. "I'm pregnant, Daniel." On the other end of the line, Daniel couldn't breathe. The divorce papers, the arguments, the anger, everything suddenly disappeared. Only one thought remained. They were going to have a baby. And for the first time in months, neither of them knew whether to cry, laugh, or be terrified. Daniel sat down so suddenly that the chair behind him nearly collapsed. For several seconds, he couldn't say a word. He simply held the phone against his ear and stared into space. Pregnant. The word echoed repeatedly inside his head. After years of hoping, after years of waiting, after years of conversations about starting a family, it was finally happening. And yet their marriage was falling apart. "Daniel," Amara's voice pulled him back. "I'm here." Neither spoke for a moment. Neither knew what to say. Finally, Daniel asked quietly, "Are you okay?" The question surprised her. Not because it was unusual, because it was the first time in months that he sounded genuinely concerned. "Yes." "And the baby?" The baby. Hearing him say those words made everything feel more real. "The doctor says everything looks fine." Daniel closed his eyes. A wave of relief washed over him. "When is your next appointment?" Amara hesitated. "Next week." "I'm coming." The answer came so quickly that even Daniel surprised himself. Amara didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to remind him that they were getting divorced. Another part of her didn't want to. Okay, she whispered. After ending the call, Daniel remained seated for several minutes. His heart was racing. A baby. His baby. Their baby. Suddenly, all the things he had been prioritizing felt insignificant. The meetings, the deadlines, the promotions. None of them mattered. Not compared to this. That evening, Daniel arrived home earlier than he had in months. Amara noticed immediately. He stepped inside and found her sitting on the couch. The atmosphere felt awkward, different. Neither knew how to act. Finally, Daniel sat across from her. "How are you feeling?" Amara almost smiled, again. It was such a simple question, yet it felt like something she hadn't heard in forever. "I'm okay." Daniel nodded. His eyes drifted toward the ultrasound image resting on the table. Slowly, he picked it up. His hands trembled slightly. For several moments, he simply stared. Amara watched him carefully. Then she saw it. The moment everything changed, Daniel smiled. A real smile, the kind she hadn't seen in a very long time. "That's our baby." The emotion in his voice broke something inside her. Tears immediately formed. Daniel looked at her. "I know things haven't been good between us." Amara remained silent. "I know I've hurt you." Her eyes lowered. "I know I've made mistakes." More silence. Then he said something she never expected. "I'm sorry." Not the rushed apology she had heard 100 times. Not the careless apology meant to end an argument. A genuine apology. The kind that comes from the heart. Amara swallowed hard. For the first time in months, she believed him. The following week, they attended the doctor's appointment together. The waiting room was filled with excited couples. Daniel noticed fathers holding hands with their wives. He noticed smiling families. He noticed things he had never paid attention to before. When their names were called, they entered together. The doctor performed the examination. Then the sound filled the room. A heartbeat. Fast, strong, beautiful. Amara froze. Daniel froze. The doctor smiled. "That's your baby's heartbeat." Neither spoke. Neither could. Daniel's eyes immediately filled with tears. He quickly looked away. But Amara saw, and for some reason, that touched her deeply. On the drive home, neither talked much, but this silence felt different, comfortable, hopeful. For the first time in a long time, they weren't sitting on opposite sides of an emotional battlefield. Over the following weeks, small changes began happening. Daniel started coming home earlier, not every day, but often enough for Amara to notice. He attended every doctor's appointment. He called during lunch breaks. He asked how she was feeling. He reminded her to rest. The changes weren't dramatic, but they mattered. One evening, Amara walked into the kitchen and found Daniel reading a pregnancy book. She laughed. Daniel quickly closed it. "What? You were reading a pregnancy guide?" "I was researching." She laughed harder. "You looked terrified." "I am terrified." For the first time in months, they laughed together. The sound felt unfamiliar, yet wonderful. A few weeks later, they went shopping for baby clothes. The store was packed with tiny outfits, tiny shoes, tiny socks. Daniel picked up a pair of baby shoes no bigger than his palm. His expression immediately softened. "They're so small." Amara smiled. "I know." Daniel stared at them. "Our baby is going to wear these?" "Eventually." He shook his head. "That's unbelievable." As they continued shopping, something unexpected happened. They started talking. Really talking. Not about bills. Not about arguments. Not about divorce. About dreams. About hopes. About their future. The conversations became longer. The smiles became more frequent. The tension slowly began disappearing. One evening, Daniel found Amara sitting on the balcony watching the sunset. He joined her quietly. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Amara asked, "Do you ever think about what happened to us?" Daniel nodded. "Every day." "What do you think went wrong?" He took a deep breath. "I stopped paying attention." Amara looked at him. Daniel continued, "I thought providing for us was enough." A painful smile appeared on her face. "It wasn't." "I know." She looked away. "I never wanted expensive gifts." Daniel listened. "I never wanted luxury." She blinked back tears. "I just wanted my husband." The words pierced straight through him. Because she was right, Daniel lowered his head. "I'm sorry." Amara didn't respond immediately. Then she quietly said, "I missed you." Daniel's eyes filled. "I missed you too." That night, neither mentioned divorce, neither mentioned lawyers, neither mentioned paperwork. For the first time in months, they sat together on the couch and watched a movie. Halfway through, Amara fell asleep. Her head rested on Daniel's shoulder. Daniel looked down at her, then carefully placed his hand on her stomach. The baby moved. His eyes widened. Amara, she stirred slightly. The baby moved. Her eyes opened instantly. Really? Daniel nodded excitedly. A second movement followed. Amara laughed. Daniel laughed. And for a brief moment, everything felt perfect. Weeks passed. The pregnancy continued progressing beautifully. The baby became the center of their world. They discussed names constantly. One evening, Daniel suggested a name. What about Hope? Amara smiled. Hope? Daniel nodded. Because that's what this baby gave us. Amara became emotional immediately. Hope. The name felt perfect because somehow, without even being born, this child had already changed their lives. Their marriage wasn't completely healed. Not yet. But it was healing. Slowly. Steadily. Day by day. And neither realized that the closer they grew to their unborn child, the more devastating the next chapter of their journey would become. Because fate was preparing a test neither of them could imagine. A test that would either destroy everything they had rebuilt or prove that their love was stronger than any pain life could bring. By the time Amara reached her 6th month of pregnancy, their home felt alive again. The cold distance that had once filled every room was gone. Laughter had returned. Conversations had returned. Even the simple routines they once took for granted had returned. Every morning, Daniel prepared breakfast before leaving for work. Every evening, he rushed home as quickly as possible. Sometimes he arrived carrying fruit, sometimes flowers, sometimes absolutely nothing except his presence. And surprisingly, that was what Amara appreciated most. One Friday evening, Daniel walked through the front door carrying several shopping bags. Amara looked up from the couch. "What did you buy now?" Daniel grinned. "Important things." She narrowed her eyes. "That's usually how trouble starts." Daniel laughed. A few minutes later, he revealed tiny baby clothes. Amara burst into laughter. "You bought all of this?" Daniel nodded proudly. The clothes were adorable, but there was one problem. Almost everything was pink. Amara stared at him. "You know we don't know the gender yet, right?" Daniel froze. His smile disappeared. "Oh." Amara laughed so hard she nearly cried. Daniel looked horrified. "I forgot." "You forgot?" "I got excited." "You bought an entire wardrobe." I panicked. Amara continued laughing. The sound filled the room. Daniel couldn't help laughing too. Moments like that became common, moments that reminded them why they fell in love in the first place. One evening, they sat together organizing the nursery. Daniel was struggling to assemble a crib. After nearly 30 minutes of frustration, he threw the instruction manual onto the floor. "This thing was designed by evil people." Amara burst out laughing. "You have 2 master's degrees." "I have absolutely no degree in crib engineering." She laughed again. Daniel stared at the half-finished crib. "If our child ever asks how I built this, I'm lying." Amara wiped tears from her eyes. "I'll tell them the truth." "Please don't." "You suffered." "I really did." The laughter slowly faded. Then Daniel looked around the room. The nursery was beautiful. The walls, the decorations, the tiny stuffed animals, everything represented a future they were finally allowing themselves to imagine. Daniel became quiet. Amara noticed immediately. "What is it?" He swallowed hard. "Thank you." She looked confused. "For what?" "For not giving up on me." Her expression softened. Daniel looked down. "There were days I deserved it." Amara remained silent. "There were days I probably deserved this divorce." A painful smile appeared on her face. "We both made mistakes." Daniel nodded. "Maybe." Then he looked at her. "But I made more." Amara's eyes filled with emotion. The old Daniel would never have admitted that. Not because he was arrogant, because he was stubborn. Yet here he was, changing, growing, trying. And she loved him for it. A week later, they attended another doctor's appointment. Everything looked healthy. Everything looked perfect. The doctor smiled. "The baby is developing beautifully." Relief flooded through them. After the appointment, they celebrated with dinner. As they sat together, Daniel reached across the table. He gently held Amara's hand. "I have something to tell you." Amara smiled. "You're scaring me." Daniel took a deep breath. "I called my lawyer today." Her heart skipped. The mention of lawyers immediately brought back painful memories. "What happened?" Daniel smiled softly. "I told him I don't need him anymore." Amara froze. Daniel squeezed her hand. "I'm done with the divorce." For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "I'm completely done." Tears instantly formed in her eyes. Daniel's voice became emotional. "I don't want a life without you." Amara looked away as tears rolled down her cheeks. Daniel continued, "I almost threw away the best thing that's ever happened to me." She covered her mouth. "I don't want to make that mistake again." The tears came freely now. Daniel stood and moved beside her. Then he wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time since this nightmare began, both of them felt certain their marriage was going to survive. That night, they returned home happier than they had been in years. Neither realized how quickly life could change. 3 weeks later, Amara woke up feeling strange. At first, she ignored it. Pregnancy came with discomfort. That was normal. She sat up slowly. Something didn't feel right. A feeling she couldn't explain. A feeling she couldn't shake. Daniel noticed immediately. "Are you okay?" "I think so." "You don't sound convinced." Amara forced a smile. "I'm probably just tired." Daniel wasn't entirely reassured. Still, they continued with their day. By afternoon, the feeling remained. By evening, it had become worse. Daniel sat beside her on the couch. "Maybe we should call the doctor." "I'm fine." "You've said that 5 times." "I'm fine." But she wasn't. And deep down, both of them knew it. Later that night, Amara suddenly sat upright. A sharp pain shot through her body. She grabbed her stomach. Daniel immediately jumped up. "Amara!" She tried breathing through it. Another pain came, stronger. Daniel's face changed instantly. "We're going to the hospital. Maybe we should wait." "No." Another painful wave hit her. Daniel was already grabbing the car keys. The drive felt endless. Every second seemed slower than the one before. Daniel kept glancing at her, trying not to panic, trying to stay calm, trying not to imagine the worst. When they finally arrived, medical staff immediately rushed Amara inside. Daniel followed closely behind. Everything happened quickly. Questions, examinations, tests, doctors moving urgently. The atmosphere felt wrong, very wrong. Daniel sat in the waiting area. His hands shook uncontrollably. Every few minutes he stood, then sat again, then stood again. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like days. Eventually, a doctor emerged. Daniel immediately rushed toward him. "How is she?" The doctor's expression was serious. Too serious. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Your wife is stable." Relief briefly appeared, then vanished. Because the doctor hadn't mentioned the baby, Daniel's voice trembled. "The baby?" The doctor looked down. For a moment, he said nothing. And in that silence, Daniel felt terror, unlike anything he had ever experienced. "No." The word escaped before the doctor could speak. "No." The doctor's eyes filled with sympathy. Daniel's breathing became uneven. "No." The doctor finally spoke. "We're doing everything we can. Everything we can. Not everything is okay. Not everything is fine. Everything we can." Daniel understood exactly what those words meant. Fear consumed him. For the next several hours, he prayed harder than he ever had in his entire life. He paced hallways. He sat alone. He cried. He begged God. He promised anything, everything. Just save the baby. Just save his family. Just save hope. Because after everything they had survived, after everything they had rebuilt, he couldn't imagine losing the child who had brought them back together. And yet, deep inside, a terrifying feeling was beginning to grow. The feeling that life was about to test them in ways neither of them had ever imagined. Daniel sat alone in the hospital corridor. The bright lights above him seemed almost cruel. People walked past. Doctors moved quickly from room to room. Machines beeped in the distance. Life continued. Yet for Daniel, time had completely stopped. His hands remained clasped together. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor. Every few seconds, he whispered the same prayer. "Please." Then again, "Please." And again, "Please." For the first time in years, he felt completely helpless. No amount of money could solve this. No amount of hard work could solve this. No amount of determination could solve this. All he could do was wait and hope. Hours passed. Then finally, the doctor returned. Daniel stood immediately. His heart pounded so hard he could barely hear anything else. The doctor's expression told him everything before a single word was spoken. The world suddenly felt silent. Daniel stared at him. "No." The doctor lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." Daniel's knees nearly gave out. "No." The doctor spoke gently. "We did everything possible." Daniel shook his head. "No." The words felt unreal. Impossible. This couldn't be happening. Not after everything. Not after they had come so far. Not after they had finally found each other again. The doctor continued speaking, but Daniel couldn't hear him. Everything sounded distant, muffled, like he was underwater. His baby was gone. Hope was gone. The child they had dreamed about. The child whose nursery was waiting at home. The child who had already changed their lives. Gone. The doctor eventually placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm truly sorry." Then he walked away. Daniel stood there alone. Broken. Completely broken. A nurse eventually approached him. "Your wife is asking for you." Daniel swallowed hard, then slowly followed her. Every step felt heavier than the last. When he entered the room, Amara was lying in bed. Her face was pale. Her eyes were swollen. The moment she saw him, fresh tears appeared. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The pain was already saying everything. Daniel walked toward her. Amara immediately reached for him, and the moment their hands touched, both of them broke down. Not quietly, not politely, completely. Daniel buried his face beside her bed. Amara cried until she could barely breathe. Every dream they had built over the past months suddenly felt shattered. Minutes passed, then hours. Eventually the tears slowed. The silence returned. Amara stared at the ceiling. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I failed." Daniel looked up immediately. "What?" "I failed our baby." His heart broke all over again. "No." Amara shook her head. "I couldn't protect her." Daniel immediately moved closer. "Stop." "I couldn't keep her safe." "Amara." Her voice cracked. "My body failed her." Daniel grabbed her hand firmly. "No." Tears streamed down his face. "No, don't do that." "But, no." His voice grew stronger. "This is not your fault." Amara cried harder. Daniel held her hand against his chest. "You hear me?" She couldn't answer. "You hear me?" A small nod. Daniel took a shaky breath. "We lost her." Tears rolled down his face. "But you didn't fail her." The room fell silent again. For a long time, neither spoke, because there were no words big enough. No words strong enough. No words capable of fixing what had happened. The next day, they returned home. The silence inside the house was unbearable. Every room reminded them of hope. Every corner carried a memory. The ultrasound photos, the baby clothes, the nursery. Daniel slowly pushed open the nursery door. Immediately, his chest tightened. The crib stood exactly where he had built it. The stuffed animals sat untouched. The tiny pink outfits remained neatly folded. Everything was waiting for a baby who would never come home. Daniel couldn't take it. He stepped inside, then collapsed onto the floor. For the first time since childhood, he cried without restraint. He cried for hope. He cried for Amara. He cried for the marriage he almost destroyed. And he cried because life felt unbelievably unfair. Across the hallway, Amara stood frozen, watching, listening, hurting. Eventually, she entered the nursery. Neither said anything. Daniel sat on the floor. Amara sat beside him, and together they stared at the crib. Neither moved for a very long time. Then Amara finally whispered, "What should we do with all of this?" Daniel looked around the room. The question felt impossible. "I don't know." More silence. Then Amara said something that made both of them cry again. "I still want her to have a name." Daniel looked at her. Tears filled his eyes. "Hope." Amara nodded. "Hope." The name felt right, because hope had brought them back together. Hope had reminded them what mattered. Hope had saved their marriage before she was even born. And even though her life had been heartbreakingly short, her impact would last forever. The weeks that followed were brutal. Grief entered every part of their lives. Some mornings, Amara couldn't get out of bed. Some nights, Daniel sat awake until sunrise. Sometimes they cried together, sometimes separately. Sometimes there were no tears at all, only emptiness. Friends tried to help. Family tried to help. But certain kinds of pain cannot be removed. They can only be carried. One afternoon, Sophia visited. She found Amara sitting quietly on the couch, the same couch where she and Daniel had once argued endlessly. Sophia sat beside her. "How are you feeling?" Amara laughed softly, a sad laugh. "I don't know anymore." Sophia squeezed her hand. "It's okay not to be okay." Amara looked away. "I thought we were finally getting our happy ending." Tears returned. Sophia hugged her, and for the first time in weeks, Amara allowed someone else to share her pain. Meanwhile, Daniel was struggling too. One evening, Min-jun found him sitting alone in a park. Neither spoke for several minutes. Eventually, Min-jun asked, "How are you holding up?" Daniel stared ahead. "I'm not." The honesty surprised even him. Min-jun nodded slowly. "That's okay." Daniel laughed bitterly. "No, it isn't." His voice broke. "I couldn't protect my family." Min-jun remained silent. Daniel continued, "I spent years chasing work." Tears filled his eyes. Then, when I finally figured out what mattered, his voice cracked completely. It was taken away. Min-jun placed a hand on his shoulder. Neither spoke again. Sometimes grief doesn't need conversation. Sometimes it only needs presence. Months passed. The pain never completely disappeared. But something unexpected happened. Instead of pulling Daniel and Amara apart, the loss brought them closer. Every night they talked. Every night they comforted each other. Every night they chose each other. Again. And again. And again. Because somewhere during the darkness, they realized something important. The baby they lost had given them a second chance. Now it was up to them to decide what to do with it. And soon, Daniel would make a decision that would change the rest of their lives forever. Winter slowly gave way to spring. The flowers outside their home began blooming again. The world seemed determined to move forward. For a long time, Daniel and Amara had felt stuck in their grief. But little by little, they were learning how to live with it. Not forget it. Never forget it. Just carry it differently. One evening, Daniel arrived home holding a small box. Amara noticed immediately. "What is that?" Daniel smiled softly. "Come sit with me." Curious, she joined him on the couch. Daniel placed the box in her hands. Amara opened it slowly. Inside was a silver necklace. Attached to it was a tiny charm engraved with a single word, hope. The moment she saw it, tears filled her eyes. Daniel reached for her hand. "I know we couldn't keep her." Amara blinked rapidly. "But she'll always be part of us." A tear slid down her cheek. Daniel's voice trembled. She mattered. More tears followed. She will always matter. Amara wrapped her arms around him and held him tightly. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Their hearts understood. A few weeks later, Daniel came home carrying another item. This time it was a folder. Amara looked confused. "What's that?" Daniel sat beside her, then opened it. Inside were the divorce papers, the same papers that had nearly ended everything, the same papers that had sat untouched for months. Daniel stared at them, then slowly tore them in half. Amara froze. He tore them again, and again, and again, until the pieces covered the floor. Tears immediately filled her eyes. Daniel looked directly at her. "I don't want a divorce." Amara covered her mouth. "I don't want a backup plan." Her eyes overflowed. "I don't want an exit." Daniel's own eyes filled with tears. "I want you." The room became silent. Then Daniel took her hands. "I choose you." A tear rolled down Amara's cheek. "I choose us." More tears followed. "I choose this marriage." His voice cracked. "Every day." Amara could no longer hold back her emotions. She immediately threw her arms around him. Both cried. Both laughed. Both held each other tighter than they had in years. Because for the first time since their wedding day, there were no conditions, no uncertainty, no hesitation, only commitment, only love. 1 year passed, then another. Life slowly became brighter. The pain remained, but it no longer controlled them. They traveled together, spent more time together, communicated better, supported each other more intentionally. Their marriage became stronger than it had ever been. Not because life was perfect, but because they had survived imperfection together. Then one morning, Amara walked into the kitchen holding something in her hand. Daniel immediately noticed her expression. What happened? Amara couldn't stop smiling. Daniel's heart started racing. What? She handed him a small object. Daniel looked down, then froze. It was a pregnancy test. Positive. For a second, he couldn't move. Then he looked up. Amara was already crying. Daniel's eyes filled instantly. "No way." She nodded. "No way." She nodded again. Daniel laughed, then cried, then laughed while crying. Amara laughed through tears too. After everything they had endured, another miracle was on the way. But this time, excitement came with fear. Every appointment felt nerve-wracking. Every examination felt terrifying. Every unexpected sensation caused anxiety. Both of them carried emotional scars from what had happened before. Yet they kept moving forward, together. Every doctor's visit brought good news. Every month strengthened their confidence. Slowly, hope returned. Slowly, fear lost its grip. And finally, after months of waiting, the day arrived. Daniel drove to the hospital with shaking hands. Amara laughed despite her contractions. "You look more scared than I am." "I am more scared than you." She laughed. Daniel wasn't joking. Hours later, they sat inside the delivery room. The tension was overwhelming. Daniel never let go of her hand. Not for a second. Not even once. Then finally it happened. A cry filled the room. A beautiful cry. A healthy cry. The cry of a newborn baby. Both parents immediately burst into tears. The nurse smiled. "Congratulations." Daniel couldn't stop crying. Amara couldn't stop crying. The baby cried too. And somehow, all three seemed perfectly synchronized. The nurse carefully placed the newborn into Amara's arms. The room instantly became quiet. Amara looked down, then gasped softly. She was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Tiny fingers, tiny nose, tiny eyes. Perfect. Daniel leaned closer. His voice broke immediately. "She's beautiful." Amara nodded through tears. "She's perfect." The nurse smiled. "Have you chosen a name?" Daniel and Amara exchanged a glance. Then Amara smiled. "Maya." The nurse nodded. "Maya." The name felt perfect. A gift, a blessing, a new chapter, a new beginning. The years that followed became everything they once dreamed about. Maya filled their home with laughter, with energy, with joy, with life. The house that once felt empty now felt full. The nursery that had once carried painful memories now carried happy ones. Family photographs covered the walls. Birthday pictures, holiday pictures, vacation pictures, memories. Beautiful memories. One sunny afternoon, 5 years later, Daniel stood in the backyard watching Maya play. She ran across the grass, laughing. Her joyful voice filled the air. Amara stepped beside him. For several moments, they simply watched their daughter. Then Maya turned. "Mom, Dad, look at me." She spun around dramatically. Both parents laughed. "You're amazing," Daniel shouted. Maya grinned proudly. Amara slipped her hand into Daniel's. He squeezed it gently. Neither needed to say what they were thinking. Both remembered everything. The arguments, the loneliness, the divorce papers, the pregnancy, the heartbreak, the loss, the healing, the miracle. Every painful step had led them here, to this moment, to this family, to this life. Daniel looked toward the sky. For a brief moment, his thoughts drifted to hope. The daughter they never got to meet. The child who changed everything. The child who unknowingly saved a marriage. A small smile appeared on his face, because he knew something with absolute certainty. Hope had never truly left them. She lived in every lesson they learned, every choice they made, every act of love they shared, and because of her, they never took each other for granted again. Maya suddenly came running toward them. Without warning, she jumped into both of their arms. The force nearly knocked Daniel backward. Everyone laughed. The three of them embraced tightly. A family that almost didn't make it. A marriage that almost ended. A love that almost got lost, but didn't. And as the sun slowly began to set, Daniel kissed Amara's forehead, the same way he used to when they first fell in love. Amara smiled, Maya giggled, and for the first time in a very long time, every piece of their story finally felt complete. Sometimes life doesn't give people the ending they expect. Sometimes it gives them something even more meaningful, a second chance. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us, do you believe love can survive even the hardest seasons of life? Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest blessings arrive after the deepest heartbreak. Thank you for watching.